everyone, and welcome back to the English Easy Podcast for a Better Life. I'm Emma, and as always, I'm joined by my fantastic co-host, George. How are you doing today, George?
Hey, Emma. I'm doing great, feeling energized and ready for today's topic. How about you?
I'm doing well, too. Today, we're going to talk about something that might sound a little shocking at first. Love yourself more than anyone else. If you're hearing this for the first time, you might be thinking, isn't that selfish? Or, that sounds like narcissism, right?
That's the most common reaction, actually. People immediately confuse it with ego, with being superior to others.
But we want you to stick with us, because behind this phrase, there's something fundamental. We're going to talk about psychology, self-worth, and our relationship with the most important person in our lives, ourselves. So, George, what's the biggest misunderstanding with this idea?
The misunderstanding is thinking it's a competition with others. Loving myself more than anyone doesn't mean I'm better than other people. It means something much simpler and deeper. You don't abandon yourself to get approval from others. It means your relationship with yourself becomes the priority. Not to dominate, but out of responsibility. Because you're the only person who will be there your entire life.
That's a different way of seeing it. I'd never thought of it like that.
The psychologist Nathaniel Branden said that self-esteem is the reputation we have with ourselves. I love that image.
The reputation with yourself. That's powerful, because in my 20s, I had a great reputation on the outside. I was successful, social, ambitious. People saw me as super confident. But inside, I didn't respect myself at all. I said yes to everything when I wanted to say no. I laughed when jokes hurt me. I worked myself to exhaustion just to feel worthy of being in the room.
And that's the trap. You can be admired by thousands of people and have completely abandoned yourself.
Exactly. At night, alone, I realized I didn't like the person I saw.
Carl Rogers, another great psychologist, talked about unconditional positive regard. For him, mental health is about accepting yourself without conditions. The problem is, most of us grew up with conditional love. I'm proud of you because you got a good grade. I love you if you're good.
We learned very early that love has to be earned.
Exactly. And as adults, we stop asking, do I love myself? And start asking, am I lovable today? That's the danger. We really need to clarify this difference. Ego needs to compare. It says, I'm better than you. Healthy self-love says, I don't need to be better than you to have value.
One needs competition, the other doesn't.
Right. And it's interesting because Kristen Neff's research on self-compassion shows that people who are truly kind to themselves are actually less narcissistic and more emotionally stable. They don't need to inflate themselves to exist.
It's funny because in society, we constantly confuse confidence with arrogance. If you set a boundary, people call you cold. If you choose yourself, they call you selfish.
Yes, and it's a daily struggle. But there's another important point. Self-love includes accountability. Ego runs from accountability. If I truly love myself, I want what's best for me. And sometimes that means admitting my mistakes so I can grow.
Oh, that's true. I've known people who talked about self-love all the time but never questioned themselves. They used it as an excuse not to change, I love myself as I am, so I don't need to evolve. But that's not love. That's complacency.
Exactly. Real self-love sometimes tells you uncomfortable truths. It pushes you to be better, not because you're not good enough, but because you deserve to grow.
George, we often look at successful people, CEOs, celebrities, and assume they must have unshakable confidence. But it's often the opposite, isn't it?
It's a huge paradox, and it's very common. Many high achievers use their accomplishments to compensate for an inner void. It's a way to silence that little voice saying, "You're not good enough."
So they're running after success to feel valuable?
Exactly. Carol Dweck, a researcher, studied mindset. She explains that people with a fixed mindset see their intelligence as unchangeable. So they constantly have to prove they're smart. And failure for them is catastrophic. It's not, "I failed a project." It's, "I am a failure."
Failure becomes about identity. That's heavy.
Very heavy. And because their worth is tied to performance, rest becomes guilt. They can't stop. James Clear, author of Atomic Habits, says our small daily actions shape our identity. If your identity is, "I must succeed to exist," you'll build habits based on fear, not balance.
I met a CEO once. Everything was going well for him, and he told me something that chilled me. He said, "If I stop performing, if I stop producing, I don't know who I am anymore."
That's dependency. Exactly that. His self-esteem was on loan from his achievements, and one day, the lender can take it back.
We keep talking about this inner critic. Where does it come from?
It rarely comes from us. It's a borrowed voice. Children are sponges. If a child grows up in an environment where they're told, even subtly, "You're clumsy," "Don't do that," "You're not capable," they eventually internalize that voice. It becomes their own inner voice.
Ah, so that's why it's so harsh sometimes. It's not even ours.
It's borrowed from a parent, a teacher, an older sibling. Carl Rogers called this conditions of worth. The child learns they only have value if they meet certain conditions, and they carry that into adulthood.
I was always told, "You're the strong one in the family." On the surface, it's a compliment. But what I understood was that my value came from never showing weakness. So I learned to never ask for help.
That's a perfect example. The inner critic is rarely original, and the worst part is we think it's useful. We think if we're hard on ourselves, we'll improve. But Kristen Neff's studies show the opposite. Harsh self-criticism increases anxiety and paralyzes us.
While kindness.
Kindness makes us more resilient. It helps us bounce back faster.
Speaking of this self-compassion, it's not just standing in front of a mirror saying, "I love myself." What is it? Practically?
Kristen Neff identified 3 elements. First, self-kindness. Instead of judging yourself, you speak to yourself gently. Instead of, "I'm so stupid," you say, "This is hard, but I'll get through it."
That's not easy. Changing that inner script.
No, but it's powerful. The second is common humanity, remembering you're not alone in your suffering. When we fail, we tend to feel isolated, like, "I'm the only one this happens to." But honestly, everyone experiences failure. It's part of being human.
Feeling less alone in your struggle changes everything.
And the third is mindfulness, The ability to observe your emotions without being overwhelmed by them. Saying, I'm feeling shame right now, without being swallowed by that shame. It's about balance.
I remember a public failure a few years ago. A project I cared about collapsed. Before, I would have destroyed myself with self-criticism. But this time, I paused. I told myself, you're human. It happens. Others have been through this. And I didn't spiral. I learned, and I moved on. That was the first time I truly understood what loving yourself means.
You just experienced all three pillars in one moment. Your story also shows something about our relationship with other people's approval. When your project collapsed, were you afraid of being judged?
Of course. Shame is exactly that fear of being judged.
The problem is, external validation is unstable by nature. Oprah Winfrey once said, "You alone are enough. You have nothing to prove to anybody." But many of us live in prove mode. We constantly have to prove our worth.
And social media is the ultimate amplifier of that mode. We get addicted to likes, comments. It becomes our emotional currency.
Exactly. But the danger is, if your mood depends on applause, your identity depends on your audience. And audiences are fickle.
And we end up living a life that isn't ours, just to please that audience.
That's the authenticity crisis. You can achieve everything and still feel empty because you built your life on sand.
And the worst part is, the more you abandon yourself to be liked, the more alone you feel. I'd love to illustrate all this with stories. Real people, like you and me.
Great idea.
I'll start. I'm thinking of Sarah. Sarah was the person everyone relied on. At work, in her family, with friends. She was always there, always ready to help. But she was exhausted, and deep down, she felt invisible. She realized she was giving to be loved, to be needed. The day she had to say no to a huge family event after surgery, she was terrified. But she said no, and she lost some relationships. But she gained her self-respect.
That's a perfect example of self-assertion. I had a client, David. Brilliant, top of his class, consultant at a big firm. To everyone, he was a success story. To himself, he was an imposter. He worked 80-hour weeks out of fear of being fired. He worked 80-hour weeks out of fear of being exposed. We worked on separating his performance from his identity, helping him see he had value outside his job. It took time, but his anxiety decreased.
That's so important. And one more for the road. Mark, 40 years old, lawyer, a life completely mapped out by his father. But inside, he was dead inside. His passion was woodworking. He quit everything to open a small shop. His family called him selfish. But for the first time, he chose himself. He didn't become rich, but he's at peace.
3 stories, 3 forms of self-love.
Okay, all this is great, but if I want to start changing things in my life, what do I actually do?
We've put together a little challenge. Very simple. 1 idea per day to prove to yourself that you matter.
Ready? Let's go. Day 1. The Observer. Today, you just notice your inner critic. Write down the phrases it says. Don't judge, don't fight, just observe. Day 2. The Best Friend. Take the worst phrase from yesterday and reframe it like you're talking to your best friend. You're so stupid becomes, You made a mistake. It's okay. You'll learn from it. Day 3. The first no. Today, you say no once to something you don't feel like doing. A coffee, a meeting, an outing. Just a no, polite and firm. Day 4. The kept promise. Make a small promise to yourself. A tiny one. I'll drink a glass of water when I wake up. And you keep it. That's all. Day 5. The solo date. Do something alone. A coffee, a movie, a walk, without your phone. Just you and you. Day 6. The compass. Take a paper, write down 3 values that are important to you. Freedom, creativity, family. Then look at your week. Were your actions aligned with those values? Day 7. The letter. Write yourself a short letter. Not to congratulate yourself, but to acknowledge your efforts this week. I tried. I did my best. I'm proud of myself.
You see, Emma, this challenge proves that self-love isn't a concept. It's actions. It's decisions.
And it doesn't mean you love others less. On the contrary, when you're solid inside, you can love others without using them to fill your own gaps.
That's it. Stop betraying yourself. Become your own ally.
It's not more glamorous than that. It's not louder. It's just more stable.
And from that stability, you can build anything. And that's everything for today's episode. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this episode and learned something new, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel.
Because your support helps us create more helpful lessons for you.
Stay motivated, keep practicing, and we will see you in the next episode.